Her cheek still burned from his slap, yet
Where
she
were
didn't
you on the night
flinch.
of the crime?
She just stared back, steady, unshaken, her silence louder than any scream. And in less than a minute, the same man who struck her would be on his knees, begging. Asterisk the sharp sting echoed through the cold, dim interrogation room as Officer Kane's hand struck her face. Every eye in the room froze. The metal chair beneath her barely moved, but her gaze never wavered. She didn't cry, she didn't curse. She just looked at him, calm, steady, as though she had seen worse storms than this man could ever bring. Her name was Evelyn Carter. To the uniform in front of her, she was just another suspect. But beneath the plain gray sweater and tired eyes was a woman who had once worn a different kind of uniform, one stitched with honor, service, and sacrifice years before. She had served as a combat medic overseas. She had carried wounded soldiers through dust and fire, patched wounds. In the dark while bullets split the air, she had held the hands of men who wouldn't live to see another sunrise, and she had done it all without ever asking for recognition. But the war had followed her home in invisible ways. Sleepless nights, the faces she couldn't forget, and now, here she was, accused of theft she didn't commit, sitting across from a man who saw only her skin, not her story. Kane paced in front of her, voice dripping with contempt, his badge gleaming under the flickering fluorescent light. "People like you never learn," he sneered. Around them, two younger officers watched silently, their eyes shifting but their mouths closed. Complicit in their quiet, the room smelled faintly of disinfectant and stale coffee. The clock ticked too loud, yet Evelyn's breathing was steady. Silence, she thought, is sometimes the sharpest blade. In her hand, hidden under the table, was a small, worn patch, the medic insignia from her old uniform. She kept it not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Her worth was not up for anyone else to measure. Kane leaned closer, his voice low and sharp. "You think you're better than me?" She didn't answer. Instead, she let the weight of her stillness fill the room, and then the door opened. A tall man in a crisp suit stepped inside. His voice was calm, but carried the kind of authority that silences chaos. He laid a folder on the table and looked directly at Kane. "She's cleared. Release her." Kane blinked, confused. "What? She? The man interrupted. "Is Sergeant Evelyn Carter, decorated combat medic, Bronze Star recipient, and you just struck her on camera." The younger officers stiffened. Kane's face drained of color. In the hallway beyond, a small crowd had gathered, fellow veterans, community leaders, and local reporters, summoned quietly by the man in the suit, who happened to be a military liaison. They had come not to shout or protest, but to stand in silent rows, their presence heavy with unspoken judgment. Kane stepped back, his hands trembling. He glanced at the open door, at the dozens of eyes fixed on him, and something broke in his stance. Slowly, awkwardly, he sank to his knees in front of her chair. His words tumbled out in a hoarse whisper. I'm sorry." Evelyn looked down at him, her voice finally breaking the silence. "Respect is not a favor. It's a duty." She stood, walking past him without another glance. The crowd outside parted for her, some placing a hand over their heart as she passed. No cheers, no chants, just the quiet weight of honor reclaiming its ground. Later, the footage would circulate, sparking conversations about dignity, respect, and the quiet power of those who refuse to be broken. And somewhere in the stillness of her own home, Evelyn placed the medic patch back in its box, not because she needed to remember who she was, but because now the world had been reminded to asterisk.